Well, just a few things before the actual class. First of all, over here in the Chinese Sangha sector that is called the Dudum Ling, the volunteers received the awards from me today as well. And then the award itself is the statue of Longchenpa. The mold itself, or the original copy of this particular statue, is purchased by me back in the 90s from Nepal. This was stated in the recollection, the memoir. And back at that time, I really wanted to receive a statue of Longchenpa, and I looked everywhere to search for it, but couldn't. I was supposed to leave on the second day, and I thought that it was probably not meant to be. I probably can't find a statue of Longchenpa. Majority of the statues were Manjushri, Tsongkhapa, and Avalokiteshvara, but not many Longchenpa statues were available back then. But then, when I was walking around, finally I found one in a shop. So I really cherished that statue, and I supplicated and prayed to that statue very often. This time, I have made copies of that particular statue, also consecrated, so that now the staff members, the volunteers who completed their volunteer work this year can receive this particular statue. I don't have enough time to give a specific teaching to everybody, to all the staff members separately, so I usually would address a bit of the merit and qualities of serving the Sangha. Larungar should be considered as a home for all of us. And we shouldn't consider ourselves as just someone to enjoy this, all the provisions that's provided over here. We should consider ourselves as a family. For example, if a family has 5 or 6 members or 8 members or so, everybody in that family would contribute whatever they can to maintain and to sustain that family. It is exactly the same to Larungar as well. That is why I think all of your service and all of your hard work to contribute to this center should be thanked for. And then that is why I am going to award you for this, for your service. I think majority of you are working very hard without complaining of anything at all, including myself, really. Since we consider that this is the center of Phuntsog Rinpoche, all of us can be considered as having the merit to contribute to the center. And this Longchenpa statue is going to be, is already consecrated and blessed, and all of you can, I hope all of you can receive the merit and wisdom of Longchenpa, so that you don't even have to prepare and you pass all the exams. Now the Khenpos and Khenpos haven't received it yet. Not so sure if they will be able to receive it. But I really hope that all of you can rejoice to those people who can and will receive this statue. And if you rejoice, then this can also be considered as your own merit as well. This is a blessed object. From a worldly point of view, you cannot eat it, you cannot wear it. You cannot have any other practical use of it. But as a Buddhist, I'm sure you see the quality of it, the value of it. A few management teachers and management supervisors asked me whether I would like to award this statue to each of the staff members individually and personally, or would I be preferred to be to have this award distributed in group. I said, well, maybe it would be better for me to award it to everybody individually so that everyone can feel that they're truly blessed. And to some of you, maybe this is the first award that you receive from me, and maybe it could be the last. You never know. Anyhow, that's the first thing. And the second thing is that in terms of the different departments, we had some of the reports from different departments of yesterday and day before, and then in the future, and their future plans will be reported later. I am quite busy. For example, in the afternoon, I have to prepare to teach. Also, I have to translate. I have lots of things on my schedule, and I really hope that the Khenpos and Khenmos can spare an hour or two to later host some trainings, especially trainings for our technicians and people with some skills over here, or serve the Sangha with their skills. Nowadays, in the county, everybody is requested to take the COVID test. They would take lots of effort to do that, and lots of people would have to supervise that whole process. Because now we are living in this very special period of time, we need to be careful. On the other hand, I think it's necessary for us to see the importance of engaged in training. The Khenpos and Khenmos, in terms of management, really need to study how to manage. In the past, I usually would criticize the Khenpos and Khenmos more than other management teams. I really hope that in the future, the management team in the future can engage in at least about a week or so of training. When we look at the trainings of barista, for example, they would have to go through a series of trainings so that they can take that post. To manage a Sangha without any trainings, without skillful means and methods, it would be very difficult. That is why that I've scolded the Khenpos and Khenmos, and some of them had cried, especially the Khenmos. Maybe because the women usually like to cry and men tend to cry less. But I'm sure I can find the triggers for them to cry as well. Anyhow, as management teams, the previous management members need to train the next management in Rota, not just management in all different departments. Also, when it comes to training, the trainings should be focused on the skillful means. For example, sometimes the Khenpos and Khenmos would order others to do certain things. And just by a simple one order or one sentence, maybe someone would be hurt, or maybe things would go wrong. That is why power could be a very dangerous thing. If the leadership is really wise, diligent, and wise, then certain kinds of orders given in skillful means can make all the members carry out those kinds of orders with a positive attitude. But if someone who is foolish but said something that is without skillful means, then the consequences could also be negative. So I hope that the Khenpos and Khenmos can also receive some trainings from the previous department, from the previous managers. Some of the previous management teams, the members had maybe decades of experience, maybe 8, 5, 6 years. Then you can train the new management team. You can teach them on what is the mode of management and so on. You can then arrange a time by saying that I'm going to give you a free training tomorrow, completely free. And the training will take about an hour a day, lasted for so-and-so days. And in this way, you can actually contribute to the later management. When it comes to culture and management, when it comes to the Dharma and management, I really feel that they're completely too distant, the two systems. If you were to not have any training in management and yet try to manage the whole Sangha, that is quite laughable. So that's the second thing. Training is really important. The third one is that in terms of the rotas of the different departments, maybe because of that, some of our fellow Sangha members are now encountering problems of finding a residence, a place to live. Well, for a period of time, we had some dorm rooms open, some of the public dorm rooms that is open to application. And it is required that after 2 years, you have to find your own place. But through different methods, I found that it is not that everyone has the capacity to rent their own rooms or find their own place to stay. That is why I thought for a long period of time last time, especially thinking of my own experience of couldn't find any place to stay when I first came to Larangar. With my own experience, I truly felt that I need to find a way to help certain Sangha members, some Sangha members to find a place to stay. Now that the dorms, some of the dorms, though already had 2 people living in it, and then because more and more Sangha members couldn't find a place to stay, the 2-room dorm rooms, the 2 rooms dorm is now arranged with even 4 people, where they don't even have any space to move around. But I think to myself that at least they have a place to sleep. In the past, when I first came here, there's no car, no electricity, nothing's available. We had to carry the firewood all the way from Naxar, the town that's at the foot of the mountain, and then carry it all the way to our house. Nowadays, the general requirement is that we cannot build more houses, we cannot have more permanent residents over here in Larangar, and the people, for example, now we have a few hundreds of government authorities patrolling around to see whether we have extra houses or extra Buddhists. So we really couldn't go beyond their limitation of the numbers of population. That being said, I tried to find empty houses and empty dorms. I've received a few people who were willing to make offering of their own houses, and I'm going to offer that to the Sangha over here, and they can see what they can do with those rooms. Well, let's see if it's possible to maybe add 1 or 2 more people into those dorms, though that we don't have any newcomers. But this had been a continuous issue for a while. Different departments had tried their best to resolve some of the living difficulties. So I'm very thankful to those departments where they tried to find different ways to resolve those issues. In terms of the male members, I think it's easier for you to find a house to stay because the state had permitted more houses for male practitioners to stay, and not many houses were taken down during that period of time. On top of that, female members are more than the male members. So female members are facing more difficulties because more houses were deconstructed during that period of time, and not so many female practitioners wish to graduate and leave Larangar. So there are various kinds of issues altogether that then resulted in the current situation that could lead to headaches to the management team. I understand that it's indeed very difficult. It's very difficult to make this issue to move forward or to recede. Or there's really no way out. At least we couldn't find any solutions yet. Also, another aspect of living in residence in other people's dorms or residence. Sometimes there are practitioners who live in a place for a long period of time, and then in some ways they feel that this is their property, and then they don't want to return the houses anymore, and that could be difficult as well. So it's necessary to make a written contract at the very beginning, or to state it very clearly at the very beginning. It is a place that you rent or it's lent from someone else. It's borrowed. You have to make sure that this is stated clearly. The Khenpos and Khenmos may not have similar feelings, but for 30 years, I've spent lots of effort in taking care of the residents of the fellow Sangha members and livelihood. In the recent few years, it's been going well just because our infrastructures had developed a bit, and we haven't received any newcomers since 2017 because the numbers of population over here is under strict control, and this is our principle. Anyhow, I hope that the Khenpos and especially Khenmos in different departments can supervise as well as to personally investigate, to observe the living situations of the fellow members who work for the department. Do not just give orders being in the office. You should personally go and make observation and then to make inquirements. For example, if you have 20 people in your department, then you should try to see how their meal situation is and their living situation is and how long they work every day. You have to be very clear about that. So that really requires a personal participation in different aspects of work. I knew a construction management person. He himself is a manager, but he really enjoys the digging aspect of construction. So he only pays attention to that, and he tends to micromanage only that aspect of, but not the bigger picture anymore. That is why I really think that as a manager, you shouldn't micromanage but you should pay attention to the bigger perspective. However, it is still important to know from each of the detail. I am telling you the secret of management. Not only I give you the teachings of the sacred teachings of Vajrayana, but I give you the teachings of the sacred path instructions of management as well. I think in the recent years I've accumulated some wisdom and knowledge about management as well as construction, and without reservation I've shared it with all of you. Well, someone said that this is the offering to me. I think you should share it to the entire Sangha. I'm not accepting it personally. Well, I'm very thankful to I'm very thankful to your offering, but in the Tibetan tradition we would say that knowing that you have not forgotten me, I am quite thankful to that. But I would not accept this, because this is really the time for me to award you, not the other way around. But I'm very thankful for remembering me in such a way. But in the future, I don't think this is necessary, because by this age, I do not have lots of eagerness to receive awards anymore, and I don't think it's necessary. Well, let us now continue with our class on the baskets display. I will not read you the oral transmission today, because today I've asked someone to send a Kummo to somewhere, and I heard the driver really cherish the oral transmission, doesn't want to have a pause to it. So I will complete the oral transmission tomorrow, and I will not read today. I will get into the class of the baskets display. The answer past profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in billions of aeons. I now see it here to receive and uphold it, vow to fathom that its true meaning, to liberate all beings. Let's generate the supreme bodhicitta. Let us continue with our class. We will further expound the qualities and merits of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. Previously, we had talked about the merits of the poor of Avalokiteshvara. Some of our fellow Sangha members told me that they had faith to Avalokiteshvara before, but now after studying even the poor, the qualities of the poor, they generated further faith. In fact, we did understand the qualities of bodhisattvas before, but this time they generated further understanding and more profound understanding of the qualities of the Buddhas and bodhisattvas. If Phuntsog Rinpoche had never given teachings on the biography of 8 bodhisattvas or the Shakyamuni Buddha, then our understandings towards the Buddhas and bodhisattvas would not be that deep and that profound. After studying it, we would be able to see that indeed the Buddhas and bodhisattvas are completely different, and we would generate wholehearted faith to the Buddhas and bodhisattvas, the kinds of faith that would be completely different than what we had before. So I really hope that after studying the Sutra of the Baskets display, you would generate further, more profound, more steadfast, more persistent faith to Avalokiteshvara. Also, we need to generate more faith to the 6 syllabus mantra. Also, this time we have received this pure oral transmission, the transmission of the Tripitaka, of the Tibetan Tripitaka. After having this oral transmission, you would have different type of blessings and strength to spread this teaching, and this is quite crucial. This is one of my main objective of giving you these teachings. Now we're talking about the qualities of even a pores of Avalokiteshvara. Yesterday we talked about how Bodhisattva Sarvanivarana Vishkambhi really want to see Avalokiteshvara and kept on asking the Bhagavad, saying that when can I see Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara? When is he coming? And then the Buddha said, well, after a little while, he will be here to bow to me and then serve me, and then that's when you can meet him. And then Bodhisattva Sarvanivarana Vishkambhi kept on thinking that maybe it is because I have great negative deeds I have not seen and have not met Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara yet. What's the point of having longevity if I don't meet him? And then he asked again to the Bhagavad Shakyamuni Buddha, saying that, could you please tell me when is he coming? I really want to meet him. And then the Bhagavad laughed and said, noble son, it is not yet time for Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara to come. And in the Chinese translation, it says that Bodhisattva Mahasattva will come at the no time. How could he come to visit at the time that is called no time? Over here it points to no coming and no going. There is not a substantial thing that would come to you and then to appear in front of you. This is a representation of saying that no coming and no going. So the Buddha said that you shouldn't rush, don't rush. And then the Buddha told Sarvanivarana Vishkambhi Bodhisattva, saying that, noble son, I'm going to tell you another pore's name and the merit associated with this pore. It is like this. Beyond that pore, there is a pore named Amrita Bindu. In that pore, 1,000,000 trillion devas live. In the previous pore, there were Gandharvas, and the female Gandharvas, as well as rishis, would live. This is the fourth pore, named Amrita Bindu. In this pore, 1,000,000 trillion devas live. Some are on the first bhumi, some are on the second, some are on the third bhumi, and then fourth bhumi, and then fifth and the sixth bhumi, and then all the way to the 10th bhumi, which is the Bodhisattva bhumi. Majority of them are of devas, and then some of them are non-devas, and maybe some are bodhisattvas but not devas. Within this Amrita Bindu, there are 60 mountains of gold and silver. Each one is 60,000 yojanas high. And each one has 90,000 peaks adorned by gold. When we look at the worldly mountains, though that some mountains also have lots of peaks, but not to the extent of having 90,000 peaks. The bodhisattvas who have developed one-pointed minds dwell on their slopes. Those mountains are beautifully adorned by all kinds of jewels, and then there are bodhisattvas who have developed one-pointed minds, and then it would dwell on those slopes. On those kings of mountains, there dwell many millions of trillions of Gandharvas who are continually playing music. According to the Tibetan translation, it says that all the bodhisattvas are the ones that first made the aspiration of who are the ones that first made the aspirations, and then some of them are of the ones that would attain full Buddhahood in the next lifetime. Well, the next Buddha would be the ones that's just like Maitreya Bodhisattva, who is considered as the one that would attain Buddhahood, or the one that would become the next Buddha. That's the translation according to Tibetan. Within this pore, many bodhisattvas would dwell, and then lots of Gandharvas would continuously playing music. Sarvanivarana Vishkambin, it is like this. Within that pore named Amrita Bindu, there are many millions and trillions of extremely beautiful celestial palaces, completely adorned with divine jewels, having many kinds of visual delights and adorned by 100,000 strings of pearls. The palace is so comfortable, very beautiful and pure, and quite and could make others feel quite at ease. But some others would be quite chaotic and messy and crowded. The other day I went to a monastic's house, and when I entered into his house, I felt quite crowded, and he tried to explain to me that it was of some very special reasons he didn't get time to clean up his room, and it was an exception that his room looked quite messy that day. When we look at a small house, we can see a lot about the owner of that house. There are people who tend to look rather quite neat and quite clean, and then they're very good with the other people. They're easygoing with the others. They would give you the feeling of it being very comfortable. But there are the ones the same that would apply to their rooms. And then there are the ones that would be exactly the opposite. But I think it's very much related to their previous habitual tendencies. There are the kind of people that tend to be more diligent, and then the ones that tend to be more procrastinating. In general, a person is very much evaluated by the others. And in Tibet, we say that to be a good person, whether you're a good person or not, is very much depending on other people's evaluation of you. I'm not sure why I got back to here, because we were talking about palaces. Maybe it's not very much logical, but I'm simply talking about that because at the times of making observation of the shrine rooms that you use, some of the Dharma teachers arrange their shrine rooms and their classrooms in such a comfortable setup, and some tend to be more messy. I think it's very much depending on the habitual tendencies of the teachers as well as the students. We cannot unify everything because as the sentient beings, we have very different karma, but we should try our best to at least keep everything tidy and comfortable. We should try to keep our activities proper so that it could create a comfortable environment for everyone else. Anyhow, over here it says that this palace, they're really beautiful, very well adorned. Also, lots of bodhisattvas who would take rests, and then they can talk about Dharma exchange, their teachings. I think this palace is very similar to Larungar. In the past, Geshe visited Larungar, and he said that this institute really looks like a school. I asked him why, and he said that because there are not as many Buddha statues, rather it is full of classrooms. Indeed, we can consider ourselves to be living in those celestial palaces, and the bodhisattvas discussing the Dharma. Then they leave the celestial palaces and go each to their own walkways, each of which has 70 bathing pools. Some are filled with water that has 8 qualities, some are completely filled with flowers, and some are completely filled with blue lotuses, red lotuses, night lotuses, white lotuses, fragrant water lilies, tiger claw flowers, and great tiger claw flowers. Along these walkways, there are beautiful wish-fulfilling trees that have red trunks and leaves made of silver and gold, made of the divine silver and gold, and are adorned with divine adornments. And then hung with diadems, earrings, garlands, 108 string and 64 string necklaces, and are perfectly hung with armlets and a variety of other adornments. The bodhisattvas walk each evening along these walkways while thinking about various aspects of the Mahayana. The Mahayana teachings regarding bodhicitta, regarding emptiness, regarding loving kindness, regarding how to benefit sentient beings, all of those Mahayana Dharma. I think that's what we should do as well. During the day, we should engage in the Dharma study and then discussions and debates. And then in the evening, we should then contemplate upon all of those Dharma teachings. We shouldn't think that, oh, it's so tiring, I want to simply sleeping for tomorrow. This is not very good. Rather, we should try our best to contemplate the Dharma teachings as best as possible. And then we should make the aspiration of bodhicitta and make dedication of merit. And if you're not that tired, I think you should engage in meditation as well, sitting meditation. The bodhisattvas, not only they would contemplate upon the different aspects of Mahayana, they think of nirvana, they contemplate all the sufferings of samsara, and after contemplating suffering, they meditate on loving kindness. And then I think this is something that we need to do as well, because as it is stated in the sutras, that if you don't know how to practice the other practices, you should at least practice loving kindness. This is the true Mahayana teaching. If you can practice in such a way, then your mind stream will slowly be tamed by great compassion. Each of us, though that not each of us had received the Mahayana Dharma teaching since a young age, but at least we all have a mother, just as some great masters would say that all of the things that your mother would do to you is the expression of loving kindness, of compassion. So I think other than very rare cases of the mothers that don't really protect you in certain ways, but majority of mothers would love you and have great compassion to you, and you can practice in such a way as well and slowly extend that kind of loving kindness to the sentient beings too. So this is the practice of great compassion. Now this is the description of the poor named Amrita Bindu. So far we've covered 5 pores, the pore of gold, and then the black, and then the Amrita Bindu pore. Each of the pores of Avalokiteshvara can be very difficult for us to even imagine. Now this is the 4th one, rather. And then the 5th one is Vajramukha. Also in Tibetan it means a Vajra door. Beyond that, beyond the previous Amrita Bindu pore, there is a pore named Vajramukha. Within it live many hundreds of thousands of Kimnaras, beautified by necklaces. Kimnaras, usually we would say that we would call them the human, non-human, the Minlami. It is considered, the Kimnaras are considered as the spirits that would play music and would dance for Indras, and would play music to King Indra. The many hundreds of thousands of Kimnaras beautified by necklaces, earrings, garlands, various jewelries, and ornaments. Also, they have all kinds of ointments of fragrances spread over their body, so that whomsoever sees them, they would generate the kind of mind of joy. Just as in the human realm, there are lots of beings that would wear garlands and perfumes and all kinds of jewelries made of gold and silver. Similarly, the devas as well as the other beings would place great importance of ointments and decorations and different ornaments. Toku Yangtang from our monastery, when he returned from India, at that time Toku Tiksha, who really enjoyed books, he told his two attendants, saying that I have whole volumes of 7 treasuries, and then the other attendant served me another volumes of the 7 treasuries, and then someone else also got me a volume of the 7 treasuries. And then Toku Yangtang said, "Well, what's the point of the books? You should have lots of gold and silver and different kinds of adornments." Of course, that was the jokes that the two Tokus told each other, but through their conversation, we can definitely see that there are people, they rightly pointed out that there are people who would enjoy more of the gold and silver and all kinds of wealth, and some would enjoy books. And nowadays, I think the modern people would prefer cars and computers, iPads, cell phones, and so on. In the past, the Tibetans would have a different grasping than the now modern people, and it is very much depends on our different value system. So in the Kimnaras world, they also enjoy the different kinds of fragrances, so that people would be very joyful at the times of seeing them. This group of people, they have lots of virtuous roots because they have continuous faith in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. They are focused one-pointedly on the Dharma, remain in loving kindness. And we can see that this group of Kimnaras have lots of happiness but not suffering. They have lots of joyful mind, and they would contemplate on nirvana and meditate on patience and are saddened for humans. Noble son, such are the Kimnaras that live there. There are many hundreds of mountains within that pore. The translation over here is a little bit different. Whether the descriptions below is the descriptions of the materials that makes up the mountains, for example, the diamonds and gold and silver and so on. The translation in the Tibetan and Chinese is a bit different, but we cannot say that if the translations are different, then one one of them is wrong. We should not say that, because at the times of translation, maybe because I myself am a translator, so I have certain feelings to translation. If I were to translate, I would feel that certain translations should be translated this way. But if I were to discuss my translation with the others, maybe another person would feel very differently about the same sutra. So at the time of translation, there are different feelings towards the text. If you were to understand a little bit, then maybe your particular way of translation would change. So in the Sanskrit version, whether it's the cave or the mountains, maybe there are different, maybe there is a specific explanation. But the two translators, the one in Chinese and in Tibetan, one considers it is the descriptions of mountains, and the other one is about caves. Maybe some of you want to study how to engage in translation later. I think if you were to understand a little bit of translation, a little bit of English, and the different kinds of languages could be very helpful to you and to the others as well. The language could stay in this world for thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years in this world, and it is quite important. And maybe because of your understanding could be different than the others, you shouldn't deny the others' understanding. That wouldn't be very helpful. At the beginning of any translator's life, you would make some mistakes. For example, when I first give some teachings and compare my translation to that of Master Fa Zun's, I felt that, well, it should have been this way, not that way. But now, when I look back, I feel like it's not all necessary. Those differences are simply the different ways of understanding. So those are my piece instructions on translation. Now let's look at the pores. Within the Chinese translation, it talks about all kinds of caves within the mountains. For example, the caves that's made of diamonds, silver, and gold, and crystals, and rubies, and sapphire, and some of the 7 jewels, and so on and so forth. The mountain has all kinds of caves. Within that pore, there are many mountains, and within that mountain there are different caves made of different jewels and diamonds and so on. And the noble sun, such are the signs seen within that pore. Noble sun, within that pore, there are many wish-fulfilling trees, coral trees, sandalwood trees, and aromatic trees. Those are the trees. Also, there are many hundreds of thousands of bathing pools. There are extremely beautiful and delightful divine celestial palaces of crystal and silver. Such are the celestial palaces that appear there. Within those palaces, the Kimnaras relax. They would relax in those celestial palaces and discuss the Dharma. They would converse about the Dharma teachings. And then they would talk about Dharma. They talk about the perfection of generosity. They talk about the perfection of conduct, and then the perfection of patience, the perfection of diligence, the perfection of meditation, and then they would talk about perfection of wisdom, the 6 paramitas. When they have talked about the 6 perfections, they leave the celestial palaces and they each go to walk in their own walkways. Some of the walkways are made of gold and some are made of silver, and then there are wish-fulfilling trees that have red trunks and leaves made of silver and gold, and that are hung with divine ornaments, hung with diadems, earrings, and garlands, hung with armlets, hung with anklets, hung with 108 strings and 64 string necklaces, and then with jewels, with all of those kinds of adornments. Those wish-fulfilling trees adorned with walkways are like many-storied mansions. The Kimnaras take walks along those walkways. While they're walking, they contemplate upon sadness and suffering of samsara. such as the suffering of death and birth and the suffering of poverty, which reminded me that the other day when we had a meeting that Khenpo transcribed his Tibetan name into Chinese language, and then he wrote his name in the Chinese character, which means poverty. But then we changed his name tag into a different character, which means beautiful jade, and he looks quite happy about it. But that Khenpo seems to have very good practice normally, so he doesn't really care about what that character suggests. So the Kimnaras at that time, while they're walking and contemplate upon the sadness of suffering samsara, they would say, oh, the suffering of death, oh, the suffering of poverty, and so on and so forth. So in the Chinese translation, it talks about the birth, old age, sickness, and death. But in the Tibetan translation, just talks about suffering, such suffering. It doesn't really specifically say about the 8 types of suffering within the world. But in the following part, it talks about the suffering separating from desire and the beloved ones. And then the next one, encountering the undesired and disliked, is extremely endurable suffering. And then there are those who are born in the Kala Sutra, in those kinds of different hell realms, born in Ravara, born in great hell of Hahava, and born in the different kinds of hell realms, also in the city of Pretas, and have greatest sufferings. The Kimnaras would contemplate up on the sufferings in such a way. Wouldn't that be wonderful to contemplate up on the different sufferings within the poor of Avalokiteshvara? Then the Kimnaras not only would contemplate up on the suffering, they would contemplate up on the more profound teachings. They would contemplate upon the essence of nirvana. They would contemplate upon the Dharmadhatu and on the Tathagata and all of those kinds of profound teachings. Noble-san, the Kimnaras who rejoice in the Dharma in that way continually remember the name of Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara. Remembering his name, they receive all kinds of things. So, of course, living in the poor of Avalokiteshvara, they would definitely contemplate upon the name of Avalokiteshvara. But over here, it says that they would remember the name of Avalokiteshvara refers to maybe the most profound type of Dharma. So they would contemplate in such a way during their meditation. And at the time of remembering the name of Avalokiteshvara, they would receive all kinds of provisions. So through the name of Avalokiteshvara, their wishes can be fulfilled. Phuntsog Rinpoche used to ask us to chant the name of Avalokiteshvara as well. Not only it could seize lots of obstacles, it could also help us to prolong our longevity and help us to gain the provisions that we need. So at the times of practicing Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva and practice upon the Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, in fact, would help us to accumulate our practice provisions. After we engage in the Dharma assembly of the 2 bodhisattvas, our provisions would become abundant. And then the Buddha told Savarnivarana Vishkambin, saying that, Noble-san, it is difficult to even hear the name of Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara. Now consider us. whom have already received the teachings on the practice of Avalokiteshvara, we can also chant the name of Avalokiteshvara, we can practice, we can think of him. So we are well endowed with great merits. We have already received such teachings. We're quite fortunate, and this is told by the Vajra speech of the Buddha. All of you sitting here have already received the great empowerments and teachings of the most profound Ati teachings and the four Ningtics. Indeed, we have no regret in this lifetime. Even if you cannot attain rainbow body in this lifetime, as long as you can contemplate upon the 11 perceptions, the sutra that we talked about the other day, do you remember? The 11 perceptions? Well, you need to remember those 11 perceptions, because we never know when we will die, when death will dawn on us, so we need to memorize it. This is quite a key fifth instruction at the time of death. Of course, it would be the best for us to study and practice the 6 bardos well. If you really can't do that, then at least you should remember the 11 perceptions. This is very short, such a short sutra. You should remember it. If you can't do that as a practitioner, this is really quite meaningless. Now, as we had already learned in the sutra, the Buddha said that it is very difficult to even encounter the name of Avalokiteshvara, because Avalokiteshvara, being the father and mother of all beings, and brings freedom from fear to all beings, reveals the path to all beings, and is the great spiritual teacher for all beings. Avalokiteshvara is the fearless guidance to us, fearless mentor, and is our father and mother, and he is the Kalyana Mitra, the great spiritual friend or great spiritual teacher to all the beings. And then the Buddha says that, noble son, it is difficult to obtain his name. Those who remember the name, that is the 6-syllable mantra, that is the Vidya mantra. So this is the first time that the Buddha started talking about the Vidya mantra. The 6 syllables of Vidya mantra will be reborn in those pores. If you can remember the 6-syllable mantra, you will be reborn in those pores. Since so far, many of you had generated a great longing to be reborn in the pore of Avalokiteshvara. Now you should look at this. If you can remember the mantra, then you'll be able to reborn in those mantras. They will no longer continue to be in samsara. They will go from one pore to another, living within those pores until they reach the level of nirvana. Avalokiteshvara indeed has such a great merit and power, and it's very much connected to the 6 syllables mantra. The 6 syllables mantra was recorded in the kings and ministers of the Tibet. In that sutra, it says that King Sonsam Gampo once saw the 6 syllables mantra that spontaneously appeared on a rock. And then out of that rock, out of that six-syllabus mantra, there radiated out the rainbow light to the boulders that's right adjacent to it, and then many bodhisattvas and deities manifest over there, and then the deities started to manifest the light and then reflected onto the rock that has the six-syllabus mantra again. So the light just kept on reflecting back and forth. Many great auspicious signs appears around that region. So King Songtsen Gampo, by relying on the causes and conditions and auspicious rising over there, started to propagate and spread the Dharma teachings that is the Avalokiteshvara practice. So in Tibet, not only that each of the households would chant the mantra. In fact, the Tibetans would say that before we even know the names of our fathers and mothers, we know how to chant the Avalokiteshvara's mantra. I myself, at the time of growing up, I was living in that kind of environment, and I would chant the mantra during the day and chant the mantra while I was herding the yaks, and I would chant mantra at all times, because the merit of the mantra is quite inconceivable. When I get old, I would, when the Tibetans get old, even if they cannot engage in any other practices, they would chant the Avalokiteshvara's mantra, the Om Mani Padme Hum. So I think if you can chant even for tens of thousands of this mantra and then use prayer wheels, I would consider this as the kind of life. This is the kind of lifestyle that would make your life really meaningful. Back in 1986, when Phuntsok Rinpoche visited Dawul, he left a footprint on that particular mountain, the sacred mountain, and then Phuntsok Rinpoche said that because I practice a lot of Avalokiteshvara practice, so you should be able to see lots of the six-syllabus mantra and Om Mahong on the rocks over there. At the beginning, we didn't believe him because at that time I had lots of dualistic thoughts. But when I truly went out and looked at those boulders, indeed, there were lots of the red-colored Om Mahong and the Om Mani Padme Hum. The letters were written in red colors. That's the same as the colors that we use to paint our huts in our cabins. If you were to try to get rid of those colors from the rock, but you couldn't get them out because those colors are the same with the rocks. There is a Lama named Yunje from Dawul. He was really touched, and he kept on looking around and find that, oh, there's another red-colored mantra that is engraved in this rock, and there's another one. At the beginning, we were doubting about Phuntsok Rinpoche's realization and the manifestation of those mantras, and we thought it must have been someone written it on it overnight. But we really couldn't get those colors off. So we felt indeed it was quite unbelievable. And later I heard that those colors did not disappear for years. In fact, lots of those miraculous powers of the great masters are very difficult for the mundane beings to believe, so I don't usually talk about it. And even if I were to tell the beings that's very secular, they would think that those kinds of manifestations are simply my illusions. So I don't really talk about that. Another thing, another miraculous power of Phuntsok Rinpoche was when he went to Hangzhou. It was right close to the Lingyi monastery. The rock beside that monastery manifested a white ah syllable. Many people saw it, and then later I also went there to take a look, and it was very clear. So all of those great realizations of the noble ones are inconceivable to the mundane beings. Now, when we were talking about the poor of Avalokiteshvara, over here, the Buddha said that as long as we uphold the mantra of Avalokiteshvara, we will be reborn in the pores of Avalokiteshvara. And then Savarnivarana Vishkambin asked the Bhagavad, saying that, Bhagavad, where can the 6 syllables Mahavidya be obtained, the 6 syllables mantra be obtained? The Bhagavad said, noble son, even the Tathagatas do not know the 6 syllables Mahavidya, let alone the Bodhisattvas. So the mantra is very difficult to encounter, and then how could even the bodhisattvas know where this 6 syllables Mahavidya be obtained? Even the Buddhists do not know the source of it. How could the Bodhisattva know about it? Master Chi Yi, in his teaching, he said that the 6 syllables is the 6 Avalokiteshvaras that would be able to eradicate the 3 obscurations of the 6 realms. The 6 syllables Mahavidya mantra is the mind, is the subtle mind of Avalokiteshvara. In the Great Illusory Net, we talk about how the mantra is the deity. It is non-dual to the deity. So Avalokiteshvara is Om Mani Padme Hum. When we chant the 6 syllables mantra, in fact, that is Avalokiteshvara. It is not that when we see something, that when we see someone that is with 4 arms, of course, those are the form, which is also important. The sound itself is Avalokiteshvara. The form is another manifestation of Avalokiteshvara. In front of the sentient beings, the manifestation of him is the form, the perception, and so on. All of those kinds of methods are the subtle mind of Avalokiteshvara. Then the Bodhisattva Savarnivarana Vishkambin asked the Bhagavad, saying that, are there any beings who know the 6 syllables Vidya mantra? Do you know it? Do anyone know it? Are there any beings who know the 6 syllable Vidya mantra? Khenpo is doing an impression of the Tibetans speaking Mandarin. And then the Bhagavad answered him, noble son, no one knows the 6 syllables Mahavidya. It is an inconceivable yoga and therefore difficult to obtain. It is difficult to obtain. Even the Tathagatas do not know it, let alone the Bodhisattvas. Even the Tathagatas do not know such, then how could the Bodhisattvas know? Noble son, all the Tathagatas have spent 16 aeons wandering in search of the 6 syllable Mahavidya. So therefore, how could a Bodhisattva know it? It is the supreme essence of Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara. If someone traveled through this realm of beings, there would be found a few who knew the 6 syllable Mahavidya. Those beings who continually possess the 6 syllable Mahavidya and are dedicated to repeat it are meritorious. When they repeat it, Bhagavats and Buddhas to the number of sand grains in 99 Ganges rivers gather around them. Bodhisattvas to the number of atoms gather around them, and they reach the entrance way to the 6 perfections. The devas of the Trishrimsha's paradise also gather there. From the Trishrimsha's heavens would gather there. The 4 Maharajas guard the 4 directions. Many millions of trillions of Nagas, such as Naga King Sagara, Naga King Anavatapta, Naga King Takshaka, and Naga King Vasuki guard the ground. Also, the yakshas from above, the earth would guard the open space above them. 10 million Tathagatas reside in each pore of that noble sun. So, whenever we would chant the 6-syllable mantra, the whole space would be protected by the Naga King, by the Yakshas, by the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. That is why chanting the 6-syllable mantra is so important. And then, residing in the pore of Avalokiteshvara, there are 10 million Tathagatas reside there. Residing there, they give their approval, saying that, excellent, excellent, noble son, you have acquired such a wish-fulfilling jewel as this. Those beings who chant the 6-syllable mantra is just as they have already obtained a wish-fulfilling jewel. And 7 generations of your descendants will attain liberation. So as long as you chant the 6-syllable mantra, then the relatives of 7 generations would also attain liberation. Sometimes when I look at the seniors, the Tibetan seniors that would chant the Om Mani Padme Hum and would use the prayer wheels and circumambulate the subas, I really feel that they're full of great merits. Also, such kinds of a person, even all the beings who live in your stomach will become irreversible bodhisattvas. So such kind of person, as we had already studied in the sutras, on each of everyone's body there are all kinds of beings living in it. Some says 84,000 and some says millions and billions of beings. They would also attain liberation as well. Noble son, those who wear 6-syllable Mahavidya on their body or on their throat will be known to have a body that is a Vajra body, will be known to be a stupa containing relics, and will be known to be the wisdom of 10 million Tathagatas. A noble son or a noble daughter who repeats the 6-syllable Mahavidya will have indestructible mental brilliance. He or she will become a pure mass of wisdom. That person will have great love and great compassion. That person will complete the 6 perfections each day. That person will receive the consecration of Vidyadhara Chakravartin, the empowerment of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. As long as we would chant the Om Mani Padme Hum, then we would receive the essence, the empowerment of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Those who inhale that person's breath, whether in love or in anger, will become irreversible bodhisattvas. They will quickly attain the highest complete enlightenment and be Samyak Sambuddhas. All those who just touch that person with their clothing will become bodhisattvas in their last existence. Women, men, boys, and girls who just see that person, and even the deer, birds, oxen, donkeys, and so on, who see that person will all become bodhisattvas in their last existence. Well, maybe later we will make a Avalokiteshvara necklace or a pendant so that you should wear it, and then that would benefit sentient beings around you. It's easy to wear it. When I was very little, I used to chisel lots of Mani mantra on the rocks. So this year, I asked some of the staff members to renew those chiseled money rocks. It is quite a prosperous habit for the Tibetans prosperous tradition for the Tibetans to chisel the money mantra on the rocks. On top of that, we also make the Tsatsa stupas and Tsatsa statues of Avalokiteshvara. This is really a great way of accumulating merit because the cost is low, but merit is great. So we should try our best to accumulate merit in such a way. Also, this person would not experience the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death, and separation from the beloved. They will become inconceivable yogins. So those are the great merits to accumulate reputation of the six-syllable Mahavidya. I believe that it is said that in the accomplished ones of the Vajrayana states that there was one old man in India who was 80 and then accumulated 100 million times of Avalokiteshvara's mantra and then lived all the way till 300 years of age and then directly ascended to Pure Land. All kinds of stories associated to that. Today is really auspicious. Let's chant the Avalokiteshvara mantra. Marna Bame, 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 Marna Bame. Marna Bame, 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 Marna Bame. Marna Bame, 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 Mar I believe back in 2003 or 2004, I've given a teaching composed by Patrul Rinpoche. He mainly encouraged the disciples to practice upon the mantra of Avalokiteshvara. Whenever you have time, I really hope that you can look into it again. He said that the only deity is Avalokiteshvara, the only mantra is the 6-syllabus mantra, and then the only practice is bodhicitta. That's the main practice. That's the fifth instruction given by Patrul Rinpoche. So we should try our best to practice all such profound Dharma teachings.